Yeah, David, I just want to capture this because you've just shared with me some really interesting ideas around the word worry as it was as it was used. Was it in ancient Hebrew or Greek or anxiety? Was
In
it anxiety?
anxiety, worry, one Greek word for
Yeah.
this that is used in the New Testament could
Hmm.
also be interpreted as distraction. So we get distracted from what's important. And so Jesus says, don't be distracted, don't worry about what you're going to eat, because look, all these birds are fed, and you're worth a lot more than birds. Why are
Mm.
you so worried about what you're going to wear? Look at the fields full of flowers. And even Solomon wasn't arrayed like these fields. So, in one way, you could say, so stop being so distracted. Just focus on what he would say is focus on the righteousness and the kingdom of God, and all these things will be taken care of. And I think in a society full of distraction, where we carry a phone around, but it's really a
Mm.
distraction machine. It can be in our pockets. And so this continual distraction can, I think, lead us to be more worried, depressed, anxious about the world. And every headline is meant for us to click on, even though I don't really remember any headlines from last week, but I'm sure they were very important at the time. Even Henry David Thoreau in Walden, when he went up to his cabin, he said that, you can read the newspaper today and then read it next week, and it's going to be pretty much the exact same newspaper. This person died, these people died, this thing happened, this explosion happened, there's a lot of poverty, these people did some good things, and it's sort of the same news across human history. And it's good to pull back, get back to the earth, get back to our own thoughts a little bit,
Yeah.
because sometimes only hearing our own voice and the algorithm feeding us our own voice uh, can make us distracted and make us feel powerless.
That's a good point. I remember reading, I think it was I want to say Brett Weinstein, who's an anthropologist, I want to say. He wrote a
Hmm.
book about like that we are still Stone Age brains running around in this entirely recent novel world that is generating. So our ancestors would have been distracted by immediate threats. So, you're walking along the plains of Africa, you're not going
Hmm.
to be like whistling to yourself, lost looking up at the clouds. You're going to be scanning the horizon, constantly distracted and aware of immediate threats. So our brains are actually hardwired for that kind of distraction. But the point he makes is that the problems that would present themselves in front of us would be things that we could either deal with or not. And if you don't, it's pretty much ended for you, right? So we would have pretty high confidence that we could handle most of these things. We would prepare. Whereas what we're
Yeah.
being bombarded with right now by the media, by the news, by the global, all kinds of news, are problems that are relentless and they're unsolvable by us personally. And that creates an apathy, a checking out, an apathy, a depression, and anxiety, low levels of anxiety, which is why people doom scroll. They choose to opt out of that and go into doom scrolling in other ways, entertainment. And because of the dopamine hits that are constant, they're trying to remedy their anxiety with these dopamine hits with doom scrolling, and it leaves them empty. It leaves them with an empty gas canister,
Yeah.
What would you say to people as just some wise recommendations how to handle and manage anxiety if you feel it?
Wow, that's a great question
It's a big
that I
question, yeah.
myself, yeah, deal with. I think there are a couple things that have been proven to work. One would be sort of a Viktor Frankl view, which is that the our lives have certain responsibilities for us to fulfill. Let's focus on those responsibilities that we can fulfill, whether it's to a child, to an editor, to a student, I've got to grade their paper and I want to do it well. And by once I jump into that grading, which I've been doing a lot of lately, then I'm actually having a conversation with another person. And I'm not anxious about the grading. I am before I grade to get started, but that's just procrastination. That's the tension. When we jump into our responsibilities, then I find that we are not distracted because now we are focused.
You're
We're
engaged.
focused on something. We are engaged. Yeah, very good word for that. Another is more of a Buddhist view that that an author named Bruce Tift has brought up in his book Already Free, and that is just living with the feeling of not being resolved. That and maybe we'll the problem that we're thinking about that we keep focusing on, I feel lonely, uh, as opposed to I'm just alone. I feel abandoned as opposed to I'm just alone. But the more we think of that, the more we feel like it has to be resolved. And he says, from more of a Buddhist perspective, you just sort of live with that feeling of loneliness. And it didn't kill you, didn't break your arm, didn't do any harm to you, and realize it may never be resolved. And then you have the skills and the will to move on with life. And as we engage with other things, that feeling goes away. But when we really focus on those negative parts of our lives, it does make us anxious. And I don't think I can have lived in that space for very long. But sometimes, if I'm really upset about something that someone said and they have died 10 years ago, there's no resolution to that because they're already gone. But I may live with that feeling for the rest of my life, but it should not control how I live my life. So those are two things that I think are important to
Yeah.
uh, dissolve, maybe the word dissolve anxiety and distraction, if we look at it that way.
Right. I think there's that element of surrender too, right? Like what you can't control, it's better to let the energy flow and surrender. But I think there is this conflict between Western mindset and Eastern mindset. And I think if we can merge the two and flow with it a bit more, because there's a part of our human nature that is designed to resolve issues and problems. And so I worked with a coach about 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, write on a piece of paper 5 things, okay?
Mm.
Starting with the hardest thing. Sorry, starting with the easiest thing and going to the hardest thing. Just 5 things. Don't do more than five. Things that you need to challenge, you need to address, you need to get on with because you've been procrastinating and they're causing you anxiety because you're stuck. And then he said,
Yeah,
right. He said, turn that list upside down. And he said, you start with the hardest thing. You start
yeah,
and you lean in and you don't stop until you have found a way through it, not over it, not around it, through it. What is it there to teach you? And I thought, brilliant, right? Because I'm definitely more of the Western mindset. I find it quite
hmm,
challenging to just like go with it. Like if I can do something, I'll do something. But I think a balance, maybe like a yin yang, like a flow, might be good
yes. Hmm.
for
I do
us.
like that idea of doing the hardest thing first.
Mm, yeah,
Um, Others would say, well, that's that may create too much stress, too much tension. It's sort of like, well, you do your chores, then you get to watch TV, and that's okay. I also am, if I show up in the morning and do the hardest thing first, the rest of the day is so much better.
I
And
agree.
also, I'm applying my energy when I have the most energy to the most difficult task,
Yep,
as opposed to
first
trying to
thing.
pick it up in the afternoon when I'm pretty much shot. That's really, I like that flipping the list idea. I really like that.
It's it gives you a sense of not control. It's more opportunity. It's an invitation,
Mm.
marked with all of your marshaled morning, if you will, energy, right? To go for it.
Hmm.
And even if, he said like it doesn't mean you have to solve it that day. It means that you make a dent, you chip, like Michelangelo, you chip
Hmm.
until until The way he said the way shows itself within it. It's not. So I find that useful. And I think that resilience is something that I think we're all, no matter what age you are, we're all beginning to realize that resilience is coming back in vogue, right?
Hmm.
It's powerful to be resilient.
It is. Um, I know that um, there was a executive coach recently who was talking about while we are focused on resilience, make sure that we are not putting ourselves in a position where we're burning ourselves out and just saying, I have to be resilient. I have to be resilient. I have to be resilient. There is resilience with making waves in our lives
Hmm.
so that we can be resilient tomorrow and we can be resilient next year. And I sort of like that big picture view of resilience,
Yeah.
which I think you're talking about because it combines being
Yes.
strong with gaining the time to strengthen yourself in
Agreed.
between.
It reminds me of a really powerful, I don't know whether the Chinese made this up, but the tactical withdrawal.
Yes.
It's very effective in traditional battlefields. And that is also energetically we can do a tactical withdrawal. So we can zoom out, look at the
Hmm.
problem maybe from a different angle and come back in. And these are ways that we can feel empowered in our own lives. And when you feel empowered, and I would suggest also embodied, like you feel holistically engaged with life, you have less anxiety because you're in it. I feel like
Hmm.
anxiety comes from a vacuum, a space, a bypassing. I think that stage you're stuck in anxiety. So I'm not a psychoanalyst,
Hmm.
but that's just been my experience.
It can be
So
very difficult getting stuck in that
yeah,
feeling powerless. I know for me, I just go for a walk at
yeah,
different
I do
times
too.
during the day because I need to get back inside my body and out of
That's right.
this 3 pounds up at the front here
Out of
of my
out of
of
the
my
brain.
brain. Yeah.
Yep,
And say, hey, I got a body. Let's give this a shot.
that's
See what
right.
the body can figure out.
Yeah, there's wisdom in the body, and that brings to mind something I read. I can't remember where I read it, but it said that an idle mind is prone to neurosis, and I found that like
Hmm.
if you don't move your body, if you're not engaged in life, if you're not active, then you start to get a little bit in your own head, like an echo chamber, and it gets worse
Yes.
and more paranoid because the brain is meant to function in the real landscape. That's why it evolved. It's meant to be problem solving in the real world, not
Hmm.
abstract, not in an abstract way. So these are all really good tips. And I know that, I mean, there is an epidemic of loneliness. We spoke about loneliness, you and I, before, actually, and how
Hmm.
anxiety, disconnection, these are all fundamental maladies of a modern technical age, which is really significant given that technology is supposed to connect us, right? So that's the
Yeah.
paradox, but we're all trying to figure it out, right? We're all, as a race, trying to figure it out. So these are
Yeah.
good tips.
I think so. It's something I deal with myself, and I think we all do at some point, and that is managing expectations, managing my own expectations, the inner voice, and realizing that this is a long life is a really long process, and to enjoy it when we can. It shouldn't be a burden all the time.
I'm going to challenge you to recap the key takeaways. Let's try and do it. All right. So, got Western and Eastern mindset, right? Right. C-
Right.
Flowing.
I think if distraction
Yeah.
is key, and what that means is to avoid distraction and engage with something, and that's what I think walking does, running, having a great conversation, writing in a journal. You're engaging as opposed to being distracted or worried about something. And then I
Hmm.
really like the idea also flow, finding time. or doing those things where time doesn't seem to matter. And I think the heart rate and the stress chemicals actually go down when we're in that state where our skills and abilities match the expectations that we have of ourselves and that others have of us.
Mm. And then the list.
That, oh yeah, and then make a list of 5 things, right? Easiest to
Yep.
hardest, and then flip
That are
it and
worrying
get
you.
going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Flip it up and start with the hardest one, and the way is through it, not trying to avoid it. And you don't have to solve it in a day, right? You start with it first thing. You make it the priority. And
Yes.
that's going to give you it's going to give you confidence in your own abilities. And I think when you're
Mm.
confident in your own abilities, you're less prone to anxiety because you're in it. You don't have
Hmm.
time to think about anxiety. You're doing it.
That's right.
So awesome. All right. Thank you so much, David. These are
Thank
great
you.
tips.